Hello students, my name is Jesse George, your professional accounting teacher. Please, before you continue with this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Georgian Theory Concepts. Thank you. Alright, now let's get started. In this video, we are looking at the concept of costs and cost classification. So what is cost? What is cost? Costs simply means the value of economic resources used for the production of goods and services. Okay, the value of resources used for the production of goods and services. All right, now when you come to classification of cost, classification means to group costs into according to degree of similarities. Okay, when you group costs according to degree of similarities. Okay, now costs can be classified, number one, according to traceability, as direct costs. Direct costs. Then we have indirect costs. Indirect costs. All right, that is according to traceability. Direct costs, they are costs that can be traced to a unit of production, while indirect costs cannot be traced to a unit of production. All right. Now, the direct costs, according to elements, can be direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. So these are the three elements of cost: material, labor, and expenses. We also have indirect material, indirect labor, indirect expenses. All right. Now, the addition of these, when you add direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, these are the elements of cost. Elements of cost. The three elements: direct, that is material, labor, and expense, other expenses. So we have direct material, direct labor, direct expenses. So the addition of this is known as prime cost. It's known as prime cost. When you add all the indirect costs together, we call it overheads. Overheads. So don't forget, indirect cost could be indirect material according to elements, indirect labor, indirect expense. It could also be direct material, direct labor, direct expenses. All right, class. Then this can further be classified into two. We have production overheads and non-production overheads. Non-production. All right. Then these can be sub-classified into administrative overhead, admin, and selling plus distribution overheads. Okay, distribution overheads. Okay, this is production overheads. When you add these two together, it will give you what you call production cost. Production cost. Right. Production cost. So production costs is the addition of prime costs and production overheads. All right. So we have the admin overheads, the selling plus distribution. So when you add these three together, it's going to give you your costs of sales. Cost of sales. So students should take note of that. All right. That is, now this classification is known as according to function. According to function. All right. Why this classification is according to elements or nature. So these are the material, labor, and expenses. But this according to function. Why this is according to traceability. Traceability. All right. So students should take note of that. Okay, class. Now we move down to cost behavior. Cost behavior. What is cost behavior? Cost behavior is nothing but a concept that shows how the total cost reacts to changes in the level of activity. It shows how the total cost reacts to changes in the level of activity. All right, now let's take, for example, you have level of activity that starts from 0 points, then it increases to 100, from 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500, okay? That is your production level, starts from 0, 100. Now, let's look at the total cost here. Supposing the total cost here is 0 because there was no activity, then we have 1,000 in Naira, all right? That's the value. So we have the value of producing 200 units, 200, then this is 300, 400, and 500. And don't forget, costs per unit. So to calculate our cost per unit, we have our total cost divided by the quantity, which is the level of activity. All right, so when you calculate your total cost here, it will give you 0. So this is 1,000 divided by 10, and that gives 10. When you calculate level of activities here, 2,000 divided by 200, and this gives 10. 3,000 divided by 300, this also gives 10. Similarly, 4,000 divided by 400, 10 and 10. You will observe that the cost per unit remain the same. Okay, the cost per unit remain the same. The behavioral pattern of this is called variable cost. It's called a variable cost. So this is a variable cost. So this is one of the cost behavior. How does cost react to level to changes in the level of activity? So it varies in the same proportion. So cost that varies in the same proportion, in the same percentage with the level of activity is called a variable cost, such that costs per unit, variable costs per unit will remain constant as level of activity changes. Okay, so if the level of activity changes, the costs per unit, variable cost per unit remain constant. So students should take note of that. All right. Secondly, that's for that. Then number 2, supposing we have level of activity that start from 0, 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. Then you have total cost in Naira value 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, and 1,000. All right. Then if you calculate your cost per unit, which is total cost all over quantity, you will observe that this is 0, 1,000 divided by 100, and that gives 10. 1,000 divided by 20, that's 5. 1,000 divided by this give us 3.3 something. 1,000 divided by that is 2.5. 1,000 divided by 500 units, and this gives 2. Okay, look at our cost per unit. It reduces as level of activity increases, but the total cost remains unchanged. It remains unchanged. So this kind of the behavioral pattern here is called fixed cost. Fixed cost. Okay, it's called fixed cost. Then the graph of fixed cost. If this is cost and this is level of activity, all right, will remain constant. So this is total fixed cost. But so what is fixed cost? Fixed costs, they are costs that remain unchanged as level of activity increases or changes, such that fixed cost per unit reduces as level of activity increases. Okay, you will see that as this increases, the fixed cost per unit reduces. Okay, unlike variable cost that changes in the same proportion, in the same percentage. Okay, that's why we have variable cost per unit to be constant. All right. So let's take another instance when you have level of activity and you have 0, 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. And our total cost at this level is 1,000. At this level is 2,000. At this level is 3,000. At this level is 4,000. At this level is 5,000. At this level is 6,000, and so forth, for example. Then our cost per unit. What is cost per unit? Is nothing but total cost all over quantity. That's our cost per unit. This divided by that 0. This divided by this. What do you have here? 20. 3,000 divided by this, we have 50. 4 divided by this, we have 12 points. 5 divided by this, we have I think this should give us 13 point something. This is 12.5 and this is 12. Okay, now the behavioral pattern, if you look at this, you will want to call it a variable cost. But what is the condition for variable cost? The condition for variable cost is that cost per unit will remain constant. So in total, it resembles a total variable cost. It resembles variable cost. But in units, it resembles fixed cost. If you look at your fixed cost and variable cost, you will observe that variable cost in total changes with the level of activity. It changes. Then the fixed cost also reduces. All right. So in the same vein, when you look at the nature of this cost, in total, it looks like a variable cost. In per unit, it looks like fixed cost. So it has both fixed and variable cost. So this kind of cost is called a mixed cost. So what is mixed cost? Mixed cost is a cost that contains the elements of variable cost and fixed cost. We can also call it semi-variable cost. Semi-variable cost. Okay, you can't call it semi-fixed cost. Some people make mistake and say fixed cost. So semi-variable cost. Okay, that's another name for fixed cost. So the graph will be, it has a variable, it has fixed cost component. So this is total fixed cost. Then from here, it has a variable component. So this is variable cost. Okay, that is why when you have total cost, is equals to fixed cost plus variable cost. And in business, we use total cost. We use Y. This we use A plus variable cost per unit is represented by B, and level of activity is represented by X. Okay, so this is known as cost function. This is known as cost function. Cost function. All right, class. Okay. Then lastly, supposing you have level of activity 0, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4, 5, and 600. Okay, and you have 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. By the time you get to this place, you have 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, then 3,000, and so on. You will observe that this is total cost. Then your cost per unit, don't forget, is total cost divided by quantity. This is 0, this is 10, this is 5. Then when it comes here, we have 6.67. Then this is 2,000 divided by 4. 2,000 divided by 400, that's 5. Then 2,000 divided by 5, that's 5. Okay, this is 4, and this one is 5. We will see that for a range, it's a range of activity, the total cost remain constant, then the cost per unit reduces. For another range, when it goes to this place, it increases and remain constant for a period of time. The cost per unit also reduces, like the variable cost, okay, like the like the fixed cost, but this is fixed in total. Then total cost per unit, that is fixed cost per unit, also reduces. Okay, so this is what we call the behavioral pattern of this. It's called step fixed cost. Step what? Fixed cost. So you will see that it remains constant. So you are going to have it remain constant. When it gets to a time, it increases and remain constant. When it gets to a time, it increases and remain constant. So this is what we call step fixed cost. Step fixed cost. That's another behavioral pattern or behavior of cost. So what is cost behavior? Cost behavior is nothing but a concept that shows how the total cost reacts to changes in the level of what? Activity. Okay, so if you love this video, please do share with your friends. Don't forget, cost behavior, we have variable costs, we have the fixed cost, we have the mixed costs, and the step fixed cost. All right, step fixed cost. So you can replay the video. Please share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Then in my other videos, you can watch cost separation. When costs are mixed together, they need to be separated for planning purpose, for control purpose, for decision making purpose. Okay, thank you. Bye for now.